going to be very present. Another aspect of guilt that I want to touch upon before I say what my approach is that might help is that I think that guilt and anger are two very natural responses to absolute lack of control. So when we don't have control, it's so difficult for us to be with the fact of not having control of the things that are so important. That it's so hard to say, yep, this happens and who knows why. It's almost like it's easier to blame either ourselves or someone else. Mm-hmm. We try to make sense of it that way, even though in the long run it causes us pain and it doesn't really help. So, first of all, what do you think about what I said so far? Is this resonating?
Yes, I mean, it's resonating for me so much. And, you know, that lack of control that you just mentioned, I mean, that is the whole condition with this thing. There's just no control over it. And, you know, as moms, as human beings, you know, we want to be able to control the things that we're responsible for. And so it's such a feeling, you know, especially early on, it's just a total lack of control that, you know, you just keep going back in your brain as to what could I have done differently so that this didn't happen. So, oh gosh, yes, very much so.
Yeah. So what I think can be useful, actually, you kind of just said it, that question that we asked, what could I have done differently, is actually a key aspect to what I'm going to say. But it depends how we ask it. Because often we can ask it with a kind of sentence, a verdict before we've even looked, right? We're guilty, we haven't even been charged, and we're already guilty, and we know we're guilty. And what I'm going to say is actually connected. For me, it's something that I actually think I made up, but I might have heard it somewhere and not.
We're giving you all the credit.
But it connects really well to a kind of therapy called internal family systems, which is a wonderful approach. I don't like the name of it so much, but the approach itself is so smart. And basically talking about parts inside. You know, we can all relate to having different parts, like I want that cookie, I don't want that cookie, right? And they're both fully there at the same time,
yep.
Right? So we have all different kinds of parts. But what this approach says, and it's nothing too technical, it's like we have something that feels a certain way, that's a part. What this approach says is that every part of ourselves wants what's good for us, which I think is revolutionary. So even anxiety, even self-blame, even the part of us that needs to be addicted, whatever it is, that part wants what's good for us. Is it achieving that? Not necessarily, of course. Like those examples I gave, nothing good happens. Well, very little good happens to us because of that. But the part means well. So what this approach says is to have a conversation with guilt, to try to hear guilt. Because it's kind of like what I was talking about before. We're so often trying to protect ourselves from feelings. And when it works, it's great. But if the feeling is constantly there going and hurting us, to turn towards the feeling and have a conversation with it. So to really ask yourself seriously, with a full wish to see if there's an answer. What do I believe I should have done differently? And if you find an answer to that question, the next question is, do I think I really could have done that? And if the answer to that question is yes, then the third and last part is, okay, what are the exact points? Or what's the exact point where I feel like I should have done something differently? And then that does one of two things. Either you don't get to step number 3, because all kinds of things come up in step number 1. But in step number 2, you go, no, I didn't know that. I didn't know that, or no one could have done that, or whatever it is. And then we have to forgive ourselves for that, just for being alive. But sometimes what happens is we do find something specific that we feel we should have done differently. I was working with a woman who was experiencing grief over the loss of her husband, which is very different. This is an example that
Well,
And
it's grief is grief too,
yes,
and there's a lot, the loss of a husband is definitely a devastating thing too. So, I mean, like you said, comparison is not good, but at the same time, we all grieve together and everyone experiences it in one form or another.
absolutely right. So she was feeling guilt. Guilt is guilt is a great strategist. Like, it doesn't matter what we did, we'll feel guilty about not having done the other thing.
That's right.
So if you think of someone who's like feels like their husband should have had chemotherapy and they should have made them have chemotherapy, or someone the opposite, they did have chemotherapy and it was so difficult for them, and maybe that actually made them weaker, and I should have made them not have care. Like, no matter what we do, guilt will attach itself to something because we really feel we should have been able to fix it. But of course we can't. So when she asked herself these questions, she actually did identify something that she wished she would have done differently. She felt that when they were talking to the doctors, she wasn't assertive enough with asking questions and helping her husband ask questions. And so that's a completely different thing than having this overwhelming, vague sense of guilt that kind of permeates everything, kind of takes over everything. You can learn from that. You can say, okay, there's one thing, and I don't want to do that again. So what do I need to do in order to never do that again? In order to, are there places in my life where I'm doing that now? Not, standing up for my need for more information, let's say, or saying what I need to say. And then it becomes a source of growth.
Yeah.
And we can know that we're going to do our best not to do it again.